to the Eagle Eye Podcast, the number one show to bring you all things Club America in English, from tactical analysis
Pelota para la banda izquierda.
to player updates. We've got you covered on all the latest news on Las Águilas. Now, let's start the show. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Eagle Eye Podcast. Today, we're going to be breaking down Club America's victory over Querétaro in the Jornada 2. Vital 3 points that America ended up getting. So, I guess things progressing for Las Águilas del América in that aspect. And of course, we have plenty of transfer rumors and transfer updates to get you guys up to date with everything going on in the world of Las Águilas del América in that department. And then, of course, we'll close out the show with a preview for tomorrow's matchup in the Doble Jornada against Tigres. And to help me do all of that and talk all things Club America in English, and then Mr. Chris Rivera himself. Chris, how was your vacation in Mexico, man?
Good, man. I actually wish I stayed out there because it's raining compared to sunny California being annoying, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, good. Everything good. You know, I want to go see my family and everything, but everything good, thank God. And now I'm back. Now I can fully watch America games because over there it's very annoying to watch games on VIX and stuff.
And yeah, I mean, I can imagine. Well, the only game you had on VIX was the
Was the
San Luis one,
Querétaro
right?
game?
The Querétaro game was on VIX over there too?
No, I mean, not Querétaro. Yeah, Querétaro and the San Luis game I didn't watch, sadly. I didn't get to watch that game.
It's okay. You
I
saved
think it was on
yourself.
Fox. I think it was on Fox or something.
ESPN, actually. It was on ESPN.
Yeah. So
There
I
you
couldn't watch it. So, yeah.
It's all right. You saved yourself the trouble anyways. I think you ended up being on the better side of that. But glad that you're back. Glad that you were able to catch up a little bit of the highlights of this one. We'll talk about the importance of the 3 points and kind of what it sets up for America for the following couple of matches, as well as we kind of near the break for Leagues Cup and we'll go from there actually too, because we have two important games before we actually feature in the Leagues Cup, which is Aston Villa, but first before that Chelsea. So two good rivals that I think will get us prepared for that knockout round. But I guess let's waste no time. Let's get right into it. Let's talk America versus Querétaro. Me and Dylan were talking about this last week on the podcast, and I know you were here listening to us, and we said how important this game was for America because of the poor performances that we gave against San Luis and just kind of how bad we really showcased as bicampeones in the start of the league. So we knew that this game needed to be kind of a stamp of authority. And I mean, what better way to start it off than with Javairo's opening goal in the first minute? And then a couple minutes after that, we're seeing right now on our screen, Henry's golazo. You know, great header, great pass from Sendejas. I mean, honestly, truly, really, a performance that I think, looking at it now from this perspective, it was a good one, but not a great one at the end of the day. I think this was a match where we were very comfortable at times, which cost us maybe a goal. We're seeing it right now. It did cost us a goal. But overall, I think this was I don't know, how would you like to put it, Chris? A very comfortable win for America.
It felt like a preseason win, right? A little bit in form and in some areas, and other ones you still kind of feel that slump, right? That early in the season slump that you usually get from all these teams. We kind of, I don't know how you feel about when league starts, but I always feel like it's rushed, whether it's in January or in the summer. Like, I feel like these players should have a better preseason instead of having your preseason games when you're already in the Jornada 5, 6, 7, right? To me, I was watching it at a party on my phone. I was just watching it, and I like how quick we were. I feel like we were very dangerous early on. We got 2 goals early on, and then that goal before the half was really dumb of us, right? And I feel that's kind of the slump of the season barely starting.
I agree. I wasn't wasn't able to catch this game live because I was steering a boat. I crashed almost twice, so that's not a good thing. It was very nerve wracking. But I did try catching it here and there. I really wasn't paying much attention to the game. I did have it on my phone, but I was just kind of enjoying the moment. But I did record the match, and I did eventually ended up coming back to this game and watching it. And I would say it was a very good, solid 15, 20 minutes of America playing the style that we know them to play. And then they got very laxed. They got very comfortable. They got very much, I don't want to say overconfident in a sense, but it felt like this team was like, okay, we kind of have it in the bag. There's no reason to kind of excel. And that's why I said we got too comfortable in a sense that we gave up chances and eventually ended up giving a goal away, which I know is frustrating because I feel like this game we could have walked away with a clean sheet easily. And I think we let Querétaro grow into this game just purely because we let them. It's not because they were trying to outbest us. It's because honestly we took our foot off the gas pedal and we said, you know what, we should be cruising at this point. I did like
Yeah,
the. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was like, yeah, that's exactly how it felt, right? It felt like we got those two goals early on, and they were just kind of like, okay, whatever, the game's over. And then we kind of just gave that attitude back, saying, it's over. We're just gonna play the ball. And anytime they try to force a play, and that's how I felt the goal came. It came from a forced play from them. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, we made a mistake and here's this amazing counter. It was more like, oh, we got the ball. We're gonna force it down, and we're gonna just see if we could get one. And that's how it went down, right? And like I said, it's early on. I'm not expecting these moments later on in the season, but like you said, right, 20 minutes of dominance, and then everything else just felt like you were just sleepwalking. And I feel this game easily could have been a goleada, right? Could have been easily 5-0, 5-1 if that goal still happens, right? But it's one of those things early on, right? They beat us week one. San Luis beats us week one. It's the same thing. We were to face them later on in the season. I don't think it's the same outcome. It's just these are the moments where teams that are very less should take advantage of those that are more superior than them, right? And well, luckily for us, we stayed with a score three, and sadly we received one.
Yeah, and I think that's the most frustrating thing about it as an Americanista. You walk away from this result and knowing that it could have been much more favorable. You know, that Javairo miss is horrendous. Like there's no reason why you should be missing that one on one the way that you do. Like I've seen them like, yeah, you shoot it, it goes wide, or the goalkeeper blocks it, whatever. But to run it out of the pitch yourself because of a heavy touch, it's just ridiculous. It's embarrassing. But it doesn't take away from the fact that he had a very good game. One of those players that we said at the beginning of the season, and I remember talking to Christian about it, was the consistency that he needed to have, right? After a great performance in the Supercopa MX final, then having a poor slump against San Luis, and now coming up and having a really good game against Querétaro, I think that he needs to kind of reassure himself and have a very strong game against Tigres because he is going to start. That's a given. And so I think he needs to take these opportunities because I think, 2-3 weeks down the road, that starting 11 could be a lot more different than what we're looking at it right now. So we'll see what happens with that end. But yeah, frustration overall will be that. But at the end of the day, we talked about the importance of having 3 points and getting steady. It does feel very much still like you kind of going through the motions of a preseason, right? The teams haven't 100% gelled. No one seems to be like at top fitness. So it does suck that Liga MX started as early as they did, obviously because of, we already know, right? The League's Cup break that they needed to kind of hurry up and get a couple games in between, not taking into consideration the fact that there's still summer tournaments going on the international level. So it is unfortunate, but I guess it's one of those things, right? America has no way of saying, hey, there's no excuses at America. It's plain and simple. There's no such thing as an excuse in our club. And so I think now you just have to kind of go through the motions and get the results and get the points. And Querétaro was a must win, especially after dropping 3 very important ones against San Luis. So overall, it was a good game. The only negative thing about this, and it's not going to be the fact that we conceded, and it's not going to be the fact that we didn't walk away with more goals, is the fact that we lose Alejandro Sendejas in this one, which he was playing. It's crazy to say out of his skin because I think he has a lot more to offer than what he's giving us right now. I think he's just getting back into the rhythm of things. But yeah, I mean, how did you feel about seeing Sendejas go down? Then afterwards, the video of him walking out with that kind of, I guess I would call it a cast in a sense.
Yeah, with the boot.
Yeah, with the boot, and then
Yeah.
overall confirmation that he's gonna be out potentially till Leagues Cup.
Yeah, that's a big loss, really, because I mean, for starters, he's playing good and he's playing out of position, right? I mean, in the cancha, he did play on the left side, but it's not with us, right? It's not like he's a left winger for us. And you could play other positions, but if you don't play them consistently, it's not the same thing. So it's a big loss, right? But I asked you before the podcast, like, how do you even like what's your starting 11 with him gone? You know, like you change formations? Do you like put in an academy player? If so, who's the academy player, right? Because we have no idea who the left winger is on the
Mm-hmm.
academy. So it gets very complicated in a game against Tigres that I think Sendejas probably would have thrived in because Tigres is going to try to play down that wing. And one thing about Sendejas is that he's always going to be dropping down, right? He's always going to be there in the midfield. He's always going to be there with the defense. He's just going to be all over the place. And now it's like Chicote has to do a lot more, right? Because like we're talking about, there's no backup right now for Sendejas. Well, there's no really a backup for Chicote either. There's an academy player that I personally like, but it's also like the first big game of the season, and it's still kind of like we said earlier, preseason-ish feeling. So it
Yeah,
could get very complicated in this game. So losing Sendejas it's a big loss, right? Luckily for us, right, we go into a Leagues Cup, we get this break, so his recovery is not going to be rushed. That's important, right? We're not like we have to look at it from a whole picture because if you rush him back, what happens? Usually they get injured again. But with this time, at least we don't have to rush him back. By that time, at least we might have a left winger, and we're in his original position, the which is Javairo. He's balling right now, so it's all good, right, from that perspective. But in these next two games, that's where it gets very complicated. But I believe in Jardinet. I think he there shouldn't be doubt, even if you don't see the picture.
yeah.
Jardinet has given us trophies very early on, so I believe in him. It's a big loss, but next man up. That's pretty much the mindset right now.
Kind of has to be. We're left in no other situation but that. So Chris Ramirez is saying, is Sendejas injury major? I've heard two different stories regarding this injury, and I'm glad he asked this question because it kind of seems to be the case in Twitter that there was two narratives going around. One was the fact that Sendejas injury wasn't as bad as they initially thought it was going to be, and that he potentially could even see minutes against Juarez. I thought that was a little bit ludicrous, with especially the way that he came out of that match with that boot. That boot is never a good indication for anything, ever. And to think that it was going to be a 1 week recovery, I think was, again, one of those things where you're just like, how on earth did you think that was going to be the case? I think ultimately, America released kind of their very complicated, very wordy medical report, which basically indicated Sendeja's injury. And if you do a quick little Google search on what it is, I think the duration of that injury is from anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks. So that's why I'm saying Leagues Cup is probably the best situation, the best scenario in where we see Sendejas return. Soonest, I would say that friendly against Aston Villa. That is probably the soonest you see Alex Sendejas. And even then, I don't think you risk him for a friendly.
Yeah,
So
I'm with you. I wouldn't risk them. I think you have to just ride it out. Like I said, you now it's where you kind of have to rush and get that left winger, right?
yeah,
It looks like Brian. We'll get into all these topics, but it looks like Brian's leaving. He's on vacation until Leagues Cup. It's kind of a weird situation in my opinion because you see, uh, Araujo from Toluca already practicing with Toluca, and it's like he played a lot more than Brian, but I don't know what's gonna happen with Brian, but it does become one of those situations where you have to go bring in someone, especially for that left side, because right now you have no one. And if there's a youngster out there that is gonna play in that position and he's gonna get minutes, and he might, maybe there is. I don't know because I really the young. I don't know if you feel the same way, but the whole youngster thing kind of feels weird because you don't really know where they play, right? We look at that
Absolutely.
Diego Reyes kid, and he's like just being put out there, right? You know the nines because they're nines. A lot of them are just naturally just gonna stand there. And then you see other players, they either run the cam, they play the other wing, they play center mid, but sometimes you see them. It's like Dagoberto, right? I thought he was a center mid and a winger. They put him as a right back. Like, like it becomes one of those things where it's just like, you don't know. I mean, even with Emilio Lara, right? When he was
Yeah.
coming up, I remember we had this whole debate where is he a center back? Is he a right back? Which one's his best position? Oh, they're moving him here. Oh, he's not naturally that. That's what. Look, I don't know, man. I like the versatility, right? Because that's what Jardinet's teams usually are. These past 2 seasons have been a bunch of versatility, but like I said, do you go and put in a youngster that doesn't play that left side? Do you move formation? I don't know, but yeah, I think right now what America needs to do, what Baños needs to do, is just go and look for that left winger and get him soon, right? Because if Brian is gone, uh, I mean, where do you go with that, right? Now you're
Yeah.
talking about foreigners and they have to adapt to, the smartest thing is probably going for a Mexican left winger. And that's when you start looking at your options. It's a mess, man. The Sendejas injury really does hurt from a lot from a depth perspective, right? But like I said, Jardinet has given us too much stuff to believe in him.
Yeah, it's going to come down to him and his tactics and to see exactly who he deems fit to play either that left hand side or a formation swap in the meantime until we actually get reinforcements on that side. But it is a little bit frustrating to see that we haven't gotten anything uh, sorted out in that department just yet. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. Chris saying Brian's legal issue also might be playing a factor, and that's kind of a very good point that he's bringing up, right? That might be a situation where America's thinking, okay, we're gonna give you the vacations, we're gonna give you some time to sort it out, we're gonna try to do our part, you do yours, and come to an agreement. So we'll see about that. But going back to this America Querétaro game, I think I reiterated time and time again, but it was very vital that America ended up getting the 3 points, and yeah, I guess you kind of just move on from this point on, and you got some two tough matches up ahead. Tigres is a good matchup wherever, and even more so now that it's going to be at the Volcan. And then you have to go travel away at Juarez. I know on paper Juarez doesn't look like the most scariest team in the world, but hey, it's back-to-back traveling sessions that you have to do in a short period of time. That plays a factor as well. So again, it's not going to be one of those easy games, and hopefully I'm wrong and America can steamroll past them. But again, I'm kind of preparing myself that we're still in this preseason mentality, and so we'll see how the team adjusts to such a tight schedule at such an early stage in the season. So we'll go from there. But yeah, America got 3, Querétaro 1. Anything else to add on, Chris, before we wrap it up?
I'll just point out also that Andy Martin's scoring, man, and I think that's the best thing about the whole thing is that you lose Sendejas, but Andy still scores, right? He doesn't have Diego Valdez out there, and again, he's scoring. No Quinones, he's scoring, and that's what you want, right? Because for the long, and I know, like I said, it's early on, it's preseason. I know a lot of the times, or not preseason, but it has that preseason feel. And I know a lot of the times we get stuck on none of this matters. I mean, Liguilla, he goes and all that. I get it, but at the same time, like these games are very important because think about it. Let's say we lose the next two. Now we have 3 losses and 1 win,
Yeah,
right? Like
you're
that's really
yeah
that's
that's an
an
uphill
ugly thing.
battle.
Now you're playing catch up. You're playing
Exactly.
catch up now, and a lot of people are going to say it's early on. This and it's America. Yeah, yes, but like when you've been consistently playing for first and second place, right? Or first place for both Jardines, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
First place for both seasons. It's like you already set the standard. Now, if you have to play catch up, like you're losing a lot. Now it's like for like to say, well, we won these two league titles because of a formula that Jardine set up in Liguilla, right? Well, now that messes it up, and we're playing catch up. So we really need those goals, and like I said, Henry's scoring, and it's really important. And you know, now he has one less key player out there, but like I said, yeah, uh, uh, what's his name? Oh damn, the Vital uh, has been playing great as well. So we need to really win these two games. We need to go leave into Leagues Cup with important games. Now those friendlies with the European teams, we could have a separate discussion, right? I don't think really matters from a result standpoint, but these games right now, these are important. We need to win, and like I said, preseason feels these are where these teams are gonna look to take advantage, and especially against teams like America.
Yeah, and more so when you look at the schedule that America had, three opponents and where you think nine easy points, Atletico San Luis, Querétaro, and Juarez. Again, on paper, very, very winnable matches, and where you thought, okay, Tigres might be the only complicated one, only because one, it's midweek, and two, it's an away game to Tigres. I think if it was at home on a weekend, I don't think we would be maybe hesitant about what that result might be. But now,
And even that's debatable if you
yeah,
really think about it, because it's not like we're in the Azteca either. We're still adapting to the Estadio Deportes, right? We're still adapting to that stadium too. So it's like I said, we have to go and win these games. So if there is this complications later on with that whole new stadium and all that, hey, it's later on, and we already got these points in our
absolutely.
bag.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why it was important to start off with a win at the start of the season. You don't. That's why this Querétaro match was important. You get 3 points on the board, and now you have to find a way to make 3 points against Tigres on the road, and get those 3 points that everyone expected you to get against Juarez too. So, like the best situation for America was 12 points at before League's Cup break. Now it's 9. So you're sitting at a point in where you're thinking, okay, can I get those 9 points, excuse me? And if so, at what cost? And so let's see exactly what comes of that. But yeah, back to your Henry Martin thing. I think it's important too to get him going early on in the season, because once he gets going, it's usually difficult for him to stop. And so you mentioned it perfectly. He's got no Diego Valdez. He lost Quinones, but imagine the fact that he doesn't have these two vital players that are feeding him. Just imagine what happens when Diego Valdez does return. What happens when we get a very good left winger option that's also going to be creating opportunities for Henry. Then you're thinking, well, if he was able to do it without them, now with this added help, I think things are only looking up for America and only looking up for Henry Martin. So yeah, really good, and hopefully he can continue that run of form and that stretch of form. So yeah, I guess we'll go from there. But yeah, America Querétaro 3-1, very good, solid 3 points, and now we move on to the next one. But before we talk about that, before we jump into Tigres, Chris, we have a lot to talk about in regards to the transfer window saga that is Las Águilas del América. And this topic's not going to die. We've talked about it time and time again in the previous podcast. It's a transfer window that doesn't close until September 3rd, meaning that we have a lot of transfer rumor sagas still to go. But while we're in the thick of it, it looks like we have some very promising news as far as reinforcements for Las Águilas del América. In the last episode that we recorded, we had officially announced, right, the whole Chiquito Sanchez, and I believe that was pretty much it. But there was obviously rumors of Igor Lichnowsky signing back, the fact that we were going to get Alan Cervantes, and then there was obviously talk about the Ulises Davila situation and everything like that. Now things have progressed more and more, and now we can officially say that yes, Alan Cervantes has signed for Las Águilas del América, a signing that I think you guys have all heard me voice it. Makes no sense to me whatsoever. I feel like we're I don't know. You know what it feels like? It feels like America's buying all the toilet paper back in COVID. Like
Oh
Why do
my
we need
gosh.
so much center mid? We don't need that much depth in the center mid department. It's crazy. Obviously, though, something about that does end up leaving.
Forget the toilet paper, brother. Forget the toilet paper. It's not because toilet paper was at least needed. This is more like Pop Tarts, bro. Like remember, I don't
Yeah,
know if you remember, they like stacked up the carts with a Pop Tart. Like bro, like, that's what it feels like. Like it's
uh,
like there's
it
no, it's
does.
not needed signing.
Absolutely feels like a COVID panic buy. Um, and I tell you guys, it feels very like very Mono Osuna, very Fernando
Madrigal.
Gonzalez. Like it no sense to what truly this signing means. Like for me, Alan Cervantes, as good of a midfielder as he may have been for Santos, I don't think he walks into this America side. It's plain and simple, you know. And unless we're not seeing the bigger picture here, which I'm assuming we're not, because there's a reason why him and Jose Ivan Rodriguez were brought in, mainly just because they're Mexican, I'm assuming. But I, I honestly, I can't put to words what this signing means. And if I had to rank it 1 to 5, I would give it a 2.
I'm with you. I don't. I'm always trying to be, trying to see the picture when it comes to these signings because sometimes even though they're questionable, you kind of understand where the direction is. With both of them, I don't get it. Right? Are they more than Naveda, who went to Santos? Like, I, I
That's the
don't think
thing.
so. I know
Yeah,
Naveda got criticism, right? And rightfully so. He wasn't great. He wasn't bad. He was just mid. But what are the chances these guys are bad? Like, it's a very good chance they could be bad, right?
yeah.
And my thing is it's just you should always try to look to sign young but experienced, in my opinion. And I'm not looking at them from that perspective. I'm looking at them as throwaways. I'm looking at it from as a maybe a panic buy. So if Hidalgo and Richard Sanchez end up leaving, oh look, if the transfer window doesn't allow us to sign anyone, well, we stacked up in a bunch of midfielders and let's see which one sticks. And it's just like, okay, man, like don't sell players then if
Yeah.
that's how it's gonna be, right? Like or have a pre agreement before you get to this, right? And it's a mess. That's why I'm rooting for Isco Ramirez. I like what I see. There's one thing I don't like about him, and that's that he's really bad at short passes. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but it kills me when he tries to do a short pass and he goes straight to the other team. That's one thing I don't like. But other than that, I'm rooting for the kid. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm not. I don't. It's Madrigal. Mauro Osuna. It's even Fat Cáceres. It's all that. It's
Yeah.
just let's see what sticks. And it's like it's not COVID anymore. Like he's like I know you made that comparison, but remember we made those signings because it was difficult to sign from elsewhere. Well, right now we're not in that situation anymore, and it's just I'm not a fan. I seen people say, "Oh, Alan Cervantes was good 3 years ago." Okay, man. Like if we're going off of 3 years ago, I don't know.
Yeah, we're in
I don't know
trouble
what
if
to
that's
tell
the
you.
case.
Yeah, yeah. I'd
Yeah,
rather
no,
bring back Jesus Molina if that's the case. Like
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, that's kind of the situation there. Alan Cervantes officially confirmed by the club. Another two players that are quote unquote confirmed, but haven't been technically confirmed by the club. Yeah, is the addition of Rodrigo Aguirre from Monterrey and who's that left back from Colombia that we just got that was playing in Portugal?
Christian Borja,
Christian
Christian
Borja.
Borja.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. So those two are officially, unofficially coming to Las Águilas del Américas. Merlo has tweeted it out, and he's been the Fabrizio Romano of all things Club America at this point. So I think it's very solid to say that and they're already here in in Mexico City. They've already worn the America jacket, so I think it's just days, if not hours, um, from their presentation. So good reinforcements, or one of those where let's just kind of wait and see.
So from a financial standpoint and from a promising standpoint, it's good, right? Aguirre wasn't that great in Monterrey. But the games I did watch from him in Monterrey, they put him wide, more of a winger. And if you watched him in Necaxa, he was simply a nine. That's where he shined, right? Borja, I'm gonna be completely honest with you, bro. And I don't know if you agree with this. Borja reminds me of Samudio, and I look at this as an upgrade of Samudio and Maris. Now you have Chicote and Borja. That's what I see. I see a guy that runs, but isn't gonna be defensively great. That's what I see. I think he's
Yeah,
gonna be offensively a really good player. And Samudio was the same thing. He would go forward, and sometimes they would kill us, right? In that time, and Maris
yeah.
was just bad. I was not a fan of Maris. I think we all agree on that. I don't think that's a bold statement, but
He made. I remember one time me and Dylan made like a meme starting 11 for America, and Osmar Mares was captain of that one. So yeah, he
oh
wasn't the
man,
he wasn't the most loved character at Las Águilas en America, but yeah, it kind of has that same vibe. It kind of gives you that sense of like, okay, look, the Borja thing on a financial perspective, it makes sense, right? He's coming on a free. You're not really spending a dime to get him off another team. You're just paying his wages. That's sensible. But at the age of 31 years old, what and how much is he gonna be able to give you, right? And he looked promising, right? With Braga in a couple games. I mean, they love to give you that little clip and highlight of him at the Bernabeu playing against Real Madrid. Um, but one clip is not going to make it enough. It's different here. It's going to be a different system. How's he going to adapt? How's he going to cope? I think going forward, we all feel pretty confident that he can do a job. It's what happens when you have to defend, and that's going to be the tricky situation. So yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see how those signings pan off, and the Rodrigo Aguirre thing. I think me and Dylan were talking about it last week too. It's one of those signings where you kind of have to put faith and trust into Jardine. If he gave the green light for this to go, it's because he must have seen something in his style of play that could suit this team, and maybe potentially he could bring out the best in him yet again. Maybe to see the likes of what we saw in Necaxa, right? We'll have to wait and see. I did see a very funny tweet though, on Twitter, and it was someone tweeted out Roger Martinez no se cree ni se mata, solamente se transforma. And I thought that was the funniest
yeah,
thing ever. Because he does kind of give you Roger Martinez vibes in a sense, but maybe a little bit better. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
yeah. And
Um,
it's one thing that we highlighted when the season was over, right? Or even maybe even before that, where we said, "Hey, someone needs to come in for the nine because there's no one at all, right?" And we talked about, well, who do we bring in? Do you like anyone from the league? And everyone would name. And I remember the chat was naming players that were going to cost us $10 million. Look, we were never going to pay that much when you just paid Henry Martin. We're just
yeah,
never going to do that, right? So you're either going to bring in a prospect, right, from anywhere from South America, which is going to be like a Federico Viñas type thing. I don't think we were going to be in that business because I think it's one of those things where too much of an investment, and if it doesn't plan out, well, you're losing, right?
yeah,
Mexican strikers, we always talk about academy players, but I mean, you just sent Mosumbito on loan, and you sent Esteban Lozano again on loan. So who do you have? You have Salas, who doesn't really get playing time, and you got Ilian Hernandez, who I think we all agree was just it's like we brings the same thing that all the academy players bring. So
yeah,
what was the point? And then you look at other Mexican strikers, and it's like, well, do you want to go bring Mudo Aguirre? And everyone in the chat was like, oh, come on, like, no, go bring in Raul Jimenez. And even then, people were saying no. We're like, well, you
yeah.
got to bring in someone, and it's got to be kind of cheap. And we paid, what was it, a
Like
million, maybe two?
1.3, I want
Yeah,
to
like
say.
that's super cheap. You know, you could easily, if he doesn't plan out, you could easily get rid of him because I don't think his wages are going to be high. I would like to assume whatever he was making in Monterrey, he probably got way less than that. Like I said, it's a risky thing, but at least you're betting on someone that has planned out in the league, and he could play multiple positions, right? He could play as a left winger. Personally, I don't want to see him there because I think that's where Monterrey fans would agree that they hated him. But for us, it's like we don't need that. We don't need him to be a key player. He's not a big signing for us. He's Henry's backup, and if Henry gets injured or if you need to play with two strikers or whatever the case may be, you could get that. Henry Martin is a striker that knows how to pull his mark. He knows how to assist other players. He's a very complete player. He might not have a high ceiling, but for Liga Mexicana, he has that the ceiling that we need to be successful in the league, right? And if
Yeah.
you could be able to do that with Aguirre out there, whenever they're out there together, and it's perfect for us, right? Because he's gonna have that impact inside the box, and that's all we really need. This is not a bomba signing. This isn't a key player signing. This is simply a player that if we need a nine and we need a goal, we're gonna put him in, and he's probably gonna give it to us. So
Yeah,
I can't complain.
yeah, no, that's right. Aguirre is a very much sensible signing, right? It's someone that could be very much a player that Harina can rely on and could simply, like you mentioned, right, come off the bench, put in a performance, get a goal, call it a day. So yeah, it's a sensible signing, and hopefully, like I mentioned, it pans out and brings the fruits that Harina wants. So we'll see from that perspective. So from there on, now we're kind of just talking rumors here, right? Igor Lichnowsky is apparently signed with America two year contract with an additional +1 if America wants to trigger that. I think that's sensible, and I spoke about it last week on the podcast. I said, okay, Igor Lichnowsky going back to America, has he earned his place? Yes, absolutely. An important player for us in the Bicampeonato. Obviously, with everything that has tainted his image towards the latter stages of that season, with the whole trisecta and the discussion with Henry Martin after the whole Brian situation, it felt very much like breaking the dressing room type of situation, and I think that kind of stains his not his legacy at America, but just kind of his reputation a little bit with the fans. But it's not to say that he hasn't earned his place. And so I said the most important part for me for this deal is that it makes sense financially just as it much makes sense tactically. He fits perfectly in what Andre Jardine needs. And honestly, without him, I don't see how we have coverage in any aerial battle. And even in this game against Querétaro, you saw them win dead ball situations. In situations where you feel like Lichnowsky just kind of, if it's not him getting to it, it hits him organizing the defense in order to make sure we're not vulnerable in those stages. So I do think he brings something very important to the team. But again, aging center back just turned 30. You're gonna sign him on. If you're gonna sign him on for 3-4 years, you're gonna get a player on the wrong side of 30 that now you're gonna find it difficult to kind of move on. Which we're seeing now with Nestor Araujo, which is ridiculous. Was comment that he made earlier today. Um, but and I'll reiterate it a little bit later when we talk about it. But yeah, no, it's sensible. 2 years, the wages don't look like they're gonna be ridiculous. With an option of +1, it gives you enough time to kind of look for that replacement for him eventually down the road. Um, and I think you still get him for a good chunk of his prime in the league.
Yeah, and one thing that you said right is he covers the aerial perspective of it, which we struggled for years when it came to that. And it's funny because to our chat, I sent this post of some guy saying Miles Robinson, right? And Christian was like, "Oh yeah, like I wouldn't mind that," and I laughed, because it's like, and he brought it up saying, "Oh, you wanted Zimmerman, right?"
Mm-hmm.
But my argument at that time was Zimmerman might not be great at any other area, but the area that he is good was aerial, and Igor came in and covered that, right?
Yeah.
No one else was good at that. No one, even Ramon Juarez. When you watch him play, there's games where he loses the aerial battle, and Cáceres loses the loses it too. So I don't mind. My issues with Igor were more comments outside the field, right? Or when the final or the liguilla, he goes to Santi Jimenez weddings, stuff like that. Like I think it's just one of those things where, like, bro, like, there's no need to post all that on social media. Even if you ball out, it just brings this like negative, you know, just negative energy that your teammates might have or the families might have with you. And if we lose, it's gonna be on you. Like, and you're gonna end up losing. You know, like just too much. And then comments that he made when Henry didn't want to go join their podcast and just stuff like that. Outside of that, though, like you said, he earned it, right? We can't complain. He's a leader in that locker room, at least from our perspective. It looks like it, right? There, he has some respect. He's likable, you know. Like I said, our perspective. I don't know if that's the case, but like as long as he stays focused, and the boss even said it too, right? Emilio Escarga said, you know, there's a time for everything, and I think he needs to learn that. And I completely agree, and I can't complain. And if Cáceres does end up leaving, right, which has been rumored throughout the whole year, the whole football year, it doesn't hurt to have Igor and Juarez out there, where you can argue that they were also one of the better partnerships, right? So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So we'll see what this Igor situation is. Rumor has it that Tigres is making a life difficult for America to register him, which is most likely going to mean that he's not going to be available for tomorrow's matchup against them. So lo and behold, Tigres doing their best to kind of handicap us in that situation. But regardless, it is what it is, and so we'll see what happens in that department. Other transfer news and rumors, it's kind of died down a little bit after that. The Victor Davila thing has kind of maybe at this point it's treading water. It doesn't feel like it's catching much traction at this point. And after that, I really don't have anybody else on America's radar that could potentially be coming in to kind of fulfill that left wing spot.
you get rumors from from ESPN of Jurado from Necaxa, but I
Oh,
guess
that's right.
it's just interest. There's no negotiations, even though some pages are saying they are that between America and Pumas. But we're gonna go with what we know, right? And that's Caballero and those guys from ESPN, whether it's them or TUDN with Gibran or Julio Ibanez or Merlo, like those are the guys that we trust. And as of right now, there's no negotiations on that. The Victor Davila is because we already covered all of our extranjero spots, so we can't sign another one until someone else leaves. And as of right now, well, there's just rumors.
Yeah,
There's supposedly Richard Sanchez requested a leave. Hidalgo has offers, but they've been rejected because they haven't been good. All rumors that we're not gonna report on, right, on social media nor on here. We just have to wait and see. Santiago Naveda goes to Santos alone with the option to buy. Uh, hopefully he balls out.
hopefully when he comes back and kicks out freaking Alan Cervantes and Jose Ivan Rodriguez from the club because again, just makes no sense. But yeah, that's all I got. Look, I wouldn't worry too much if you're listening to this and thinking why is America taking so long to bring in a big name player. Honestly, it's like Chris mentioned. It's the fact that look, we have no more foreigner spots to make any moves with until we offload a couple of players, which most likely will be Brian Rodriguez, most likely gonna be Richard Sanchez. Could be a big surprise, shock move that they bring in a very good hefty offer for Alvaro Fidalgo. We'll see. It's kind of a waiting game at this point, but we mentioned it at the beginning of the episode. It is a long, long transfer window. Okay, it's gonna be from now till September. So we got a whole nother month and a couple of weeks left. Lots is gonna change. Lots is gonna happen. A lot of movement in America. I'm assuming more both ins and outs. So yeah, just keep it on our social media platforms, especially Twitter. That's where we're gonna keep you guys up to date with everything minute by minute as things happen with Las Águilas del América. So follow us over at Eagle Eye Podcast, and you guys will never miss a second or a rumor or whatever it is. We'll keep you guys up to date with everything that we know will be and should be concrete when it comes to Las Águilas del América. But with that said, anything else you want to add on before we move on to the preview?
No, I believe that's all right. I don't think there's other rumors
Yeah,
out
that's what
there.
I had here too. So I'm assuming we're fine. We'll, whatever we didn't touch upon in this podcast and whatever gets discussed within the next couple of days, which I'm sure things always ramp up for America. Sometime I don't know why Thursdays has been a good day for America news. But I guess keep your eyes peeled for Thursday. And I guess we'll go from there. With that said, though, America slowly making moves in the transfer market, and we'll see. I think we'll have a very good full fit squad by the end of Leagues Cup because it ends, I think, by September. So gotta have it then by then. If not, I don't know what to tell you guys. But all right, let's move on to the final segment of today's episode, and that is the preview against Tigres. So this one's gonna be at 8 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, 11 p.m. Eastern. I already know it. AJ's gonna be falling asleep, so we're gonna have to help him out and cover the second leg at least. The second half for sure. It's gonna be a late one. It's been a while since we've had a late match for Las Águilas del América. Chris, you excited?
Of course. I mean, the other two games were early, weren't they? I
Yeah,
know the San Luis one was early.
one was at 4 p.m. and the other one was at 6 p.m. for us. So
Yeah.
that was
So
absolutely early. This game though for us here in the United States is gonna be live via and only via Fox Deportes. So crazy plot twist. Tigres has officially announced. I don't know why they announced it. Maybe they announced it earlier. I just saw it today, but Tigres is solely gonna be on Fox Deportes now in the United States, which I guess makes sense because who did they lose? I think they lost well, they had lost Monterrey to TUDN, and then I think they lost. Did they lose Santos? I
I
want to
have
say they
no
lost
idea.
Santos.
Honestly, all the news that when it comes to like channels are always news from Mexico. Like I know they signed with TV Azteca over there, and then
Yeah. Well, usually that doesn't kind of
it doesn't
affect
matter
us over
for
here
us.
in the states
But
because TUDN
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
has a grip on most of the league. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it was news to me when I saw it, and I was like, all right, cool. I guess I have Fox Deportes. I should be fine. Um, so I guess we'll see. Jershan coming and saying they lost Pachuca and Leon. Yes, thank you. That is right. They had lost them to TUDN. TUDN is officially now going to be their home, not just in the U.S., but also in Mexico. So I guess they had to do their best, and I guess they signed Tigres.
It was part of the Chiquito Sanchez deal.
Yeah. Feels like it. Absolutely feels like it. But this one, Chris, obviously, like you just mentioned at the beginning of the episode, it's the first big boy game for America, right? It's going up against a quote unquote title contender. And we were talking about this one because I was playing the highlights of the Supercopa MX before we started, and we mentioned about how that game and this game they correlate a little bit differently, just because the fact that maybe on paper America looks like they come into this one a little bit better with some of the players defensively, but offensively you're starting to scratch your head and thinking, what is it that America is going to do to try to break down this Tigres defense and get 3 points at the Volcan? So I kind of left you some homework, and I want to see what was your predicting starting 11, and maybe we can work on it together as we go by. So kind of give me your players, and maybe we'll go by and find a formation as we talk about it.
So, like I said earlier, I don't know where all these academy players play. Right? It's very confusing because you see them play different positions anytime they're on. I know they're gonna play. That's the guarantee. They're gonna be there. I don't know if one starts or not, but guaranteed they're gonna be out there. So I'm gonna go with the diamond formation because I've seen Jardine always go to that whenever Diego Valdez wasn't out there. Now you don't have Sendejas out there. I think he's gonna go to a diamond formation. Just because I don't know who else covers that left side. Maybe there is an academy player that does cover that left side. I don't know who it is. So I'm gonna go with the diamond. It's gonna be Malagon. It's gonna be Israel Reyes. It's gonna be Ramon Juarez. Nestor Araujo, right? Because I don't think anyone else is coming back. So Nestor Araujo, Chicote is gonna be Jonathan. Wait, so it would be Jonathan as CDM, right?
Mm-hmm.
it would be Richard, and the other CM is going to be Isco Ramirez. It might be Jefecito. It might be, but I'm gonna go with Isco Ramirez just because I do think probably fits the role a little bit more as a CM. Fidalgo as an attacking midfielder. Your second strike is going to be Javairo, and your other nine is going to be Henry.
That's an interesting one. I like it. Listen to my tweaks for the diamond formation. As far as diamond formation goes, and then I'll kind of throw you a curveball if Hariner wants to stick with his 4-2-3-1 formation. I agree with the back line. Unfortunately, Nesoroco has to play because there's nobody else there, and it's crazy that his words today were, "I'm happy that I got my contract extension. I know I'm not the best. I know I haven't been at my best, but give me 2 to 3 months." This man could have said 2 to 3 weeks, 2 to 3 months, and I'll be back. That's already halfway through the season. That is ludicrous to even say that out loud and be like, guys, just wait. Just give me 2 to 4 more months, and gonna blow your mind. Gonna find a way to freaking bench Igor Lichnowsky and Ramon Juarez and Sebastian Cáceres. Like, come on. Ridiculous, but fine, whatever. So he's gonna start right with Chicote. And the diamond formation, this is what I think could potentially work for America. I keep the CDM Jonah Dos Santos, Richard on one end, Fidalgo on the other, and at the cam spot you put Chiquito Sanchez.
You're right. I completely forgot about Chiquito Sanchez. You're right. You're right.
So I think,
you're right.
and then
you're right.
Javairo and Henry up top, right? Which I think it's right now that's the most sensible formation that you would think America can come out with. But this is what I'm thinking if America does somehow want to play that 4-2-3-1 formation. Now, on that left-hand side, academy players I can only think of that can come and play that position would be Karel Campos and or the youngster Diego Reyes. But I don't necessarily think
Vela's nephew. Or Vela's nephew, but he hasn't seen the bench at all.
That's a big ask.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, that'd be a big ask. Now, I don't necessarily think that would be the case. So maybe the come in at the second half could potentially be an option. But what if, and this is going to be weird, and this is going to be a huge curveball, but what if we put Fidalgo on that left wing spot? Because he does like to drift towards the left with the way that America's been playing recently, right? And the way the midfield opens up. He opens up a little bit more wider. Sendejas cuts in inside a little bit, plays like a second center attacking mid at times, and Fidalgo kind of just naturally gravitates towards that left wing spot. Why not already put him there? You put Jonah and Richard in the midfield, Chiquito at cam, Javairo on the right, and then Henry up top. That could potentially be kind of your makeshift starting 11, and then you could still have Fidalgo and Chiquito intertwined, and where Fidalgo can still cut inside, still come and make his runs within the midfield, and sometimes if needed, Chiquito can, burst into that left-hand spot, or even have Chicote just kind of make an even more upward run and cover that space. That could potentially be the case. Regardless, whatever the case may be, is America is coming in with a very makeshift starting 11. It's not going to be our strongest natural starting 11. And that is obviously because of the fact that we lose such a vital player like Sendejas.
So I completely forgot about Chiquito Sanchez, man.
Yeah.
I completely, and that's awful because that's a key signing. But
yeah.
That is probably the best. If it's a diamond, that probably is the best midfielder. And it's not a complaint either. That's actually a better version of whatever I said, right? But I did see someone in a Discord say that maybe Fidalgo plays the left wing. I'm against it just because I don't think he could cross either. Like I don't know how you guys feel about his crosses, and I think that's just shooting herself on the foot. I think he needs to stay in the midfield and be the quarterback in the midfield, right? Or the running back in this case, where he's gonna have the ball, he's gonna run down the middle, and he's gonna force plays or force passes or whatever. He's not the most creative person, but he does progress. he has the ball from the bottom and he takes it all the way. He's the best dribbler, when it comes to midfielders, I think in Mexico. And it, like I said, I don't know where you put. Like maybe you put Dagoberto, right, Espinosa on that left wing, which I know he could play the wing, but is he a right winger or a left winger? It's a complicated thing. We're gonna have to see tomorrow. If it's a youngster, be excited for him, right? Because like
Yeah.
I know I've made comments in the past about youngsters, but you wish them the best too, because at the end of the day, there's nothing more exciting than an academy player coming out of the youth and being someone in the club, right? With that being said, what I'm against is the idea that you have to play all of them. That to me, it's always been sabotage anytime we try to do that, and there's just no need when you have a stacked team.
Yeah. Yeah. And even though we're not as stacked as we usually are coming into this one, I think that you have to kind of rely heavily on those players that have that experience, that have gotten a little bit more quality than what you have on the bench. And so we'll see what happens. But yeah, this game is not gonna be a walk in the park for America whatsoever. And look, if we end up playing a diamond formation, I expect America to try to retain the ball very heavily, move the ball around, and that midfield battle is going to be important. It's going to be a very congested midfield. I expect a very choppy game, a very kind of like foul here, foul there, from both ends, not just from Tigres, but I think from our perspective as well. So it's going to be difficult. But I think at the end of the day, America needs to find a way to kind of break down this Tigres defense and just be as defensively sound as possible as well, because it's going to be important that America walks away with a result. And I think the best result and the only result America can think of right now is getting 3 points. Like we mentioned, you already dropped three favorable points against Atletico San Luis. And this one was maybe that one game that you had wiggle room to maybe potentially drop some points in. But now you don't have that luxury anymore. Now you have to go out there. You have to get the result. You have to get the 3 points. And hey, it to call back what someone said on Twitter once, it's not the first time that America has to play against Tigres in a makeshift starting 11 and still get a result, right? Did it against them in the league not too long ago and did it to them in the Supercopa MX final. So, 3 for 3, I hope so. And, get all 3 points. I think that'll be important.
Yeah, and it's also still a Tigres that's trying to learn a lot from their new coach, right? So it's the same thing. It's the same mindset as the Super Copa MX, right? Same thing. They're trying to figure it out as they go, and we're trying to figure it out as we go. You luckily for us, we won a title off of that. Just win this 3 points, like because I said that loss early on, a lot of people are gonna brush it off, right? Once we end up winning these games, right? People are gonna be like, oh, whatever, we lost, but it could get ugly if we lose the next 2 games. It could get very ugly, and you're playing catch up, and it's not like it's Liguilla, right? Uh, for us, the mindset isn't Liguilla though. For us, it's
Yeah.
first place, home field advantage. We don't have to travel, even though it has backfired us before. It hasn't backfired us on us with Jardine. And the time where it did hurt us was in Concacaf when we had to play home first and then go visit Pachuca. So if you want to treat three-peat, you need to have home field advantage. That's why I know it's still a long season, but that's the reason we're having these conversations, because we don't want to look back and say, "Man, if only you won against Tigres, Juarez, San Luis." Like it's one of those things where we have to win.
Yeah, you don't want to be going against the current on this one, right? You can't be making up points at the end of the season because really, honestly, there's no points to make up. It's either you grabbed them or you didn't, and now you're kind of stuck in a bind if you're looking at it and thinking, oh well, and what should have been should have been. Can't have that mindset, and like again, we stress the importance of these first 4 games and the potential of 12 points. And now having to settle for for 9 sounds like a big difference in that aspect too. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, for America, tomorrow will be important, will be vital. Get the 3 points, and then after that, quick turnaround, because then you have to go up against Juarez, another road game, and so we'll see what happens from that perspective. But all right, Chris, give me your prediction for tomorrow night's match. What are you going with?
I'll go with a 2-1. I'll go with 2-1. I'll go brace from. I'll actually go one goal from Andy, one goal from the Vitals. I'll go two, and then I think we end up getting scored on, but I think it's like a late goal. It won't be one of those like 1-1 type things. I think it'll be a late goal. We went 2-1.
All right. I like it. I am going to go with a 1-0, a nice boring 1-0 for a nice late 8 p.m. matchup. So I think we get one in. Why not? Let's say Chiquito Sanchez scores one, and everyone can start making their memes on Twitter about it. So
that he's bigger than Tigres.
yeah, exactly, absolutely. So yeah, 1-0. Hopefully we're right, and we come back next week and talk about America in the perspective of where things are looking good, and now we have that pause for Leagues Cup and the importance of getting those points, right? So we'll see. But all right, Chris, I just realized Leagues Cup break is after this weekend. That's crazy.
Yep, literally right after this weekend, and for us, it's gonna be like what? 2 weeks?
It's 2 weeks after that, because we have a bye until knockout stages. So
we're gonna sit here and talk about Aston Villa, right?
Yeah, we're gonna break down your Chelsea next week. Should be fun.
I'm here. I'm here for that. I'm here for that.
We'll talk about how America has to contain Raheem Sterling and the fact that Cole Palmer is not gonna be there to save Chelsea.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Hey, like I said before, my European teams are second. It's all about America. So hopefully we win those games, man.
Absolutely, and hopefully Henry scores. Right, he didn't score last time we played against Chelsea. But it'd be nice if he scored against them this time around.
Yeah, and Aston Villa too, man. Bigger than Arsenal.
Yeah, there you go. Bigger than Arsenal. No love hate for AJ's Arsenal. So there we go. But with that said, I think that pretty much wraps it up for us here. Chris had one more statement though. He said the Estadio Azul is such a terrible looking stadium. Sad we couldn't get any games in the States. Don't worry, Chris. I think they're working on that for next year. So I do agree though. The Estadio Azul is just terrible on TV. And it's even more sad. And we didn't talk about it, Chris, just because I totally forgot the fact that no one went to the game. And maybe we'll pick up this topic again next week when we have a little bit more time on our hands. But the lighting, just in general, it's a very dull stadium.
It's ugly. There's a reason why Cruz Azul got too comfortable at the Azteca, because they knew, it's nice over here. It's nice. They have an AC over here.
Yeah, it's kind of like those situations. Absolutely. But all right, that does it for us here. We'll be back next week to talk all things Club America in English and get you guys ready for America's quote unquote Premier League debut as we go up against two Premier League sides in our preseason tour. So let's see how that goes for Las Águilas. With that said, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time out and talking America with me. This was fun.
Always, brother. Every week when I can, I'm here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys to the listeners, to Chris, to Jershawn, to all of you guys on any and all platforms that you guys are listening to us as well. Thank you so much. With that said, you guys have a wonderful night. Until then, take care. As always, Arriba la América. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was another production of the Eagle Eye Podcast, the #1 source for all things Club America in English. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Eagle Eye Podcast and get all the latest news and coverage. And subscribe to our podcast wherever it is you may listen.